Well, we are just finished with the November month, which is Islamophobia Awareness Month. And in this month, we all try our best to highlight this issue because as a community, this is a number one issue in all aspects of our life is affected by Islamophobia. Now, the 2018, the APPG and British Muslims did an incredibly great work, and that work was to have a definition so that we know exactly when is it this is Islamophobia, so that it can be actually measured. Because if you do not have a definition, you cannot measure it. So over the last 5 years, there's been a huge effort in order to make sure that this definition is accepted. And we have achieved a lot of success in this acceptance of this definition. Almost all the political parties, except the Tory party, which is actually in government, the only party which has not accepted it. Lots of councils have accepted it, lots of state unions have accepted it, a lot of other organizations have accepted it. So the acceptance is quite wide in the community, but the government isn't. So this was a process through which we're now trying to push the government. Again, for years now, we've been reaching out to the government, and they've been coming up with all sorts of excuses for delaying this. Many times I've written to the Prime Minister, to the head of the Conservative Party, other ministers who are in charge of community relations, the Home Office, with figures which show that the Muslim community are the largest group of almost between 44 to 50% every year that this hate crime is being committed against. So we're at the top of the pile, and yet the government is not doing anything to tackle it. And the first step that they can need to do is to accept the definition. So they delayed it first, and then they said they're going to come up with their own definition. And then they've wasted a few more years on that idea, but then again, not done anything. And now last year, they even abandoned that. So it shows to me the government actually is not serious. And that's why I've used this procedure in the parliament through which you can petition the government. So this was done in the chambers.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think the reasons are behind this refusal of the government to adopt this APPG definition of Islamophobia? And do you think that there is no will from the government to tackle such an issue, the Islamophobia in the country?
Yeah, I think there's no ifs and buts here. The evidence has been around for a long time that there's an issue of Islamophobia. The fact that Home Office own figures show that we are on the top of the pile, almost half of this offence is being committed against Muslim on the religious hate offences, then there is a need. And yet, despite that 5 years period, the government has been reluctant. So I can only say that either they don't care that is affecting the Muslim community, which I think is not acceptable. As a government, they have a responsibility to everyone. Or secondly, I think they are concerned about the consequences of accepting this definition. And the reason may well be is that within their own ranks, within their own party, they may feel that there's an issue and therefore they will be now exposed. They won't have a place to hide. We've seen that a report which was they themselves commissioned, which Mr. Singh report, again, that highlighted that there is an issue, but the government still seems to be dragging their feet. The third point possibly is that they feel that their vote bank, the people who actually support them, may have this issue, so they don't want to go there.
Mm-hmm. So obviously we know that the other political parties, they have already adopted the APPG definition of Islamophobia, except for the Conservative Party. So can we say that there is a kind of institutionalization of Islamophobia in the country?
Well, I think you would have to accept that because there's no doubt that this problem exists. As I've already stated, that the Home Office own figures are telling us this. There are many other research done by reputable universities who have gone through this, and they are saying that they say there is an issue here. So I think it will be in all aspects of life. This certainly is my view, that as a Muslim community, this is affecting us. in every aspect. And therefore, this is a number one issue for the Muslim community to make sure we deal with the problem of Islamophobia or the Muslim hate, whichever terminology one wants to use. The problem is the same.
So, Mr. Afzal, for you as a Muslim member of parliament, and seeing that consistent kind of refusal to adopt this definition, which is a very important step to tackle the issue in the country, how does it make you feel?
Well, I feel very disappointed, I suppose, in the sense that I feel the effects of it. I think my family feel the effect of it. And my future generations will feel it as well if we don't deal with it. For the government not to take this issue seriously, it also means to me that they don't take Muslim community seriously, because this is their number one issue. And that's why, as a community, we need to mobilize and make sure that whatever we can do to highlight this to our political leadership, that we should do that. And of course, we will be having elections. Again, it's a factor which could be used, and I think we should use, and make sure the parties know that there will be consequences if you don't listen to us. If we are going through these difficulties, we are going through this hate crime, and you're not bothering to do anything, then we will also decide where we vote.
Okay, so now the petition is submitted. What's going to happen next, like practically speaking, from the parliament?
The petition now that has been submitted will now, of course, go to the government, and government will look at it and then see if they react to this or not. I mean, I've also written to the letter to the Prime Minister. I've written letter together with the Labour Party's head of the party as well. So we are getting some response back. I just feel they just keep trying to find excuses not to deal with the problem. I think there's a definition on the table which widely accepted. Now, if they think they have something which is not acceptable in this definition, then they have a duty to come up with their own definition. What they cannot do is not do anything. At the moment, 5 years down the road with this definition, all the evidence says that they're not accepting this definition, and they're not coming up with their own definitions as well. So they're quite happy to have the status quo. And the status quo means the Muslim community, our young people, our people who are going through different aspects of the life are suffering through Islamophobia.
I'm going to ask you now, Mr. Afzal, about your resignation. We know that you resigned from your former position as shadow minister. Could you share with us what was the reason or the reasons behind your resignation?
Well, look, we all can see after the pause that this fighting has again started, but we know that the sheer loss of life we have all seen from both sides is huge. And particularly on the Palestinian side, we've seen something like 15,000 plus, and there'll be many thousands still buried under the rubble as well, because almost half the buildings have been damaged with the bombardment the Israelis have done. I also feel that the steps the Israeli government had been taking of cutting off the electricity, water, food, hitting the hospitals, the schools, all are actually pointing towards war crimes against the international law, which is quite clear on the humanitarian aspect as well. And for making a movement of nearly 1.7 million people like that, all those things point towards the violation of international law. And I think that means that we need to make sure that the Israeli government, and in this case, if there's a feeling that Hamas has also done war crimes, then they should all be brought to trial. But the second key point for me, why I resigned, was I felt that the pause wasn't good enough. And the loss of life, the scale, the disproportionate loss was so huge that actually we needed to stop this loss of innocent life. And then my third reasoning, I think, ultimately is the solution to this problem is actually well known to the whole world. And instead of going through the war, what we should be going through is trying to solve this problem so that we have a two-state solution. And that, I think, is what majority of the Palestinian and the Israeli people also want, and so is the place of the world. So why waste so much loss of innocent life? Why not get on with all of us working together to get to that solution, which we all agree is the answer here?
Mm-hmm. My last question to you is about the Labour Party now. So after we have heard the leadership's stance on Gaza, what do you think about the Labour Party and its future?
I think, look, many people, I realize, are very disappointed with the Labour Party's position. The first thing I would say to your views would be this. Look, it's not the Labour Party which is in government. We are in opposition. Actual responsibility lies with this Tory government who are failing to stand up for the Palestinians, who are standing with the Israeli side. The Labour Party, I've already said, yes, they are progressing. I think not fast enough, and that's why I resigned. But at least they're moving in the right direction. I like the amendment actually which Labour had put in this period when there was a vote. The idea that there has to be accountability on both sides. I welcome that. I think there should be. And the second point is the key point of resolution of this dispute, that we should not let this go back into the cold store, but actually we owe it now to both sides that actually the resolution is found. So I find the travel of Labour Party is in the right direction. The trajectory is right, but I just feel they're slow. They should be actually asking for a ceasefire and then carrying on with recognizing of the Palestinian state and then pushing for the resolution.